My name is Callum, and last fall, I took a short-term teaching job in a remote town called Duston, buried deep in the Appalachian foothills. The town was small, maybe 500 people land. The school was even smaller. I was fresh out of grad school, broke, and desperate to put something on my resume. When the offer came in, I jumped at it without thinking twice. Duston wasn't on any map I'd seen. I had to follow a printed-out set of directions since my phone lost service about an hour before I got there. The main road into town twisted through dense forest, and the trees leaned in on both sides like they were eavesdropping. By the time I reached the town limits, it was dusk, and the air had that strange stillness you get just before a thunderstorm, except the sky was clear. I'd been given a small house to stay in, more of a cabin, really on the edge of town. It was rustic, with uneven floorboards and creaky windows, but it had electricity and running water, so I couldn't complain. The nearest neighbor was about half a mile away, and the forest started just behind the backyard. It was quiet out there, too quiet sometimes. No cars, no barking dogs, no kids riding bikes. Just whined through the trees and the occasional call of an owl. The first few weeks passed without incident. I got used to the routine of teaching the same 30 kids every day, eating lunch alone in the teacher's lounge and coming home to silence. Then I started noticing things small, almost dismissible things. My porch light would flicker around midnight, even though I'd replaced the bulb. I'd wake up and find my front door unlocked, though I knew I'd locked it. Once I found a child's handprint on the inside of the fogged-up bathroom mirror. I've lived alone. I chalked it up to forgetfulness, or maybe the nerves of being alone in a new place. But then came the knocking. The first time, it was just after 1 in the morning. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door. I thought maybe it was one of the students playing a prank. So I got up and opened the door without looking through the peephole. No one was there. I stepped outside and looked around. My porch light flickered, and the forest was pitch black beyond the yard. I stood there for a few seconds listening, but there were no footsteps, no rustling, just silence. I locked the door and went back to bed. The next night, the knocks came again. The same time, same pattern, 3 knocks, evenly spaced. This time, I didn't open the door. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and listened. After the 3rd knock, I heard something else. Breathing, just outside the door. Slow, ragged breathing, like someone trying to be quiet but too winded to manage it. I didn't sleep that night. The next day I asked one of the other teachers, Mrs. Henley, if anyone had mentioned break-ins or kids sneaking around late at night. She got quiet and said, "It's best not to answer knocks after midnight in Duston. You'll know that." I asked her what she meant, but she just shook her head and walked away. That night, I barricaded the door with a chair and turned on all the lights in the house. At 1:07 a.m., the power cut out. The entire house went dark in an instant. Sat frozen in the living room, shotgun across my lap. The air felt thick, heavy, like the whole house was holding its breath. Then the knocks came again. 3 of them. This time, they weren't on the front door. They came from the back of the door that led into the woods. I didn't move, couldn't. My arms felt numb and my ears were ringing. It was no breathing this time, just a new sound. Dragging, like something was being pulled slowly across the wooden deck. I heard it move past the window, around the side of the house, and then silence. When morning came, the power was back and everything looked normal. No footprints, no damage, just 3 deep gouges in the deck boards, as if something heavy had been dragged across them. I went into town later that day and stopped by the general store. The owner, an old man named Clyde, asked how I was settling in. I told him about the knocks and the dragging. His face went pale. "You should have never opened that door," he said. "Not the first time. That's how they get in." "Who?" I asked. He just stared at me and said, "They come every fall." "Same nights? Same knocks?" "Your place used to be the parsonage before the last preacher vanished. Some say he answered a knock one night and never came back." I didn't know what to say. It sounded insane, like some backwoods legend meant to scare outsiders. But it explained the odd looks I'd been getting, the way people seemed to avoid me. Maybe they knew something I didn't. That night, I didn't even pretend to sleep. I sat in the living room, every light on, doors locked, windows shut tight. 1:07 a.m. came and went. No knocks, no dragging, nothing. I let myself breathe, thinking maybe whatever it was had moved on. Then from the bedroom, 3 knocks, not on the door, but from inside the closet. I stood up so fast the chair toppled over. My ears rang with silence after the knocks. I held the shotgun and inched toward the room. The air in the hallway was freezing, my breath visible in the dim light. I reached the bedroom, heart hammering, and stood in front of the closet door. 3 more knocks, this time rapid, urgent. I pulled the door open. Nothing. Just clothes hanging, no one inside. But on the floor was a small piece of folded paper. I picked it up, hands shaking. Let us in. The handwriting was spidery, almost childlike. I tore the paper in half and tossed it into the fireplace. No, the knocks didn't come the next night or the one after. I thought maybe I'd broken the pattern, somehow sent a message that I wasn't afraid. But I was wrong. On the 3rd night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the attic. Slow, deliberate. The attic had no floorboards, just beams and insulation. No one should have been able to walk up there. But the footsteps came anyway. I grabbed the shotgun and the flashlight and pulled down the ladder to the attic hatch. I didn't want to go up there. I couldn't live like this. I climbed slowly, shining the flashlight into the dark. The beams swept across insulation and cobwebs, then stopped on something that didn't belong. A chair, just an old wooden chair, sitting in the middle of the attic. I moved closer and saw the rope. It was tied to a rafter, hanging down just above the chair, looped into a noose. Beneath it, carved into the attic floor, were the words, "One opens, one hangs." I climbed back down and didn't sleep. The next day, I went to the sheriff's office, told him everything. He didn't write anything down, just stared at me and said, "You've made it this far. Don't give them a name. What does that mean?" I asked. He looked toward the woods and said, "They only need your name." I packed that night. I didn't care about the contract, the job, any of it. I left before sunset, took the long way out since the main road was blocked by a fallen tree, though I hadn't heard any storm. I never went back to Duston, never looked at a map to see if it was real or if I'd imagined the whole thing. Sometimes, around 1:07 a.m., I wake up in my apartment, heart pounding, and swear I hear 3 knocks on the window. I live on the 6th floor.
Thanks for listening to tonight's terrifying tale. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Tell me in the comments what kind of horror stories you'd like to hear next. Urban legends, haunted places, true crime twists, or something from your own nightmares. Until next time, keep the lights on, just in case.